Ciao, signori, signori. No, let's do that again. Ciao, signore, signori. Mi chiamo Giorgio. So, today I'm going to bring to you a discussion about the Italians in Advanced Squad Leader and how they're portrayed in the game. So, with that, let's get started. I might turn off my handsome face here so you can see the full screen if I find that it's obstructing your view from all the facts. So, let's go to slide number 2. There you go. So, I think you get a beautiful image of everything. What's important to note about the Italians, do not forget that these single-man counters are elite units. As such, when playing the Italian player, uh, you need to you need to know and keep in the back of your head that's your most valuable asset. Use them to rally, close combat, and prevent cowering. Because ideally, well, in the best of times, you're dealing with a lot of units that can cower easily. You're dealing with a lot of conscripts. You're dealing with uh, units that uh, are not as elite. There's not as many elites in your battle order of battle than all the other nationalities. Now, I didn't create this slide just for a gratuitous picture of Pietro Badoglio. The reason why I put this slide in uh, is to remind everybody that single man counters are elite, regardless of what nationality you're playing. So, what does that mean? Is if by any chance you're playing the Italians, and your opponent has in their order of battle a flamethrower um, or a demolition charge, and they don't successfully set it, or they in the course of trying to use it, they end up getting killed and drop it to the floor. Then your leader can pick it up and use it without any penalty, because by the rule book, single man counters are elites, and that's in chapter A. So let's move on. Italian guns and AFEs. First and foremost, they use the red to hit numbers, except for the ATR and the machine guns. And if you're playing early war, you need to recall, as per Alpha 25.6, right? Uh, the exception is ATRs and machine guns. And you're playing in early war, you're dealing with armored fighting vehicles that have low armor factors. You should not be hesitating to first use the MG or the ATR to try to take out the armored fighting vehicle as opposed to your gun. Save your gun for last. So use them wisely, know their attributes before the scenario starts. Um, and take note of them, because in the course of playing, especially against a live opponent, you might forget them in the heat of battle, in the actual heat of battle. So, yeah, uh, the number one takeaway from here is know your guns and their special attributes before you hit the battlefield. All right. So this is how the Italians uh, ELR. The 447 goes to the 346. The 346 can go to a 336 conscript. Right. So elites are your 447s, the ELR to the 346, and only elite units can deploy. So the rules in question there are A20.5, the fact that only elite units can deploy, with the exception of uh, guarding, A2122, and temporary crews to occupy abandoned armored fighting vehicles. So you know that only elites can deploy, but at the same token, you can take advantage of capturing prisoners to deploy at that point, because you can't otherwise. Now, one person that uses that tactic to a good effect is my good friend Mark Dennehy. When he's playing the Russians, he says, "Hey, my squads cannot deploy, but the exception is I take a prisoner." So you take a prisoner, and in turn you get a half squad as a little prize, which you can use to scout the battlefield ahead and do other sorts of shenanigans. I wouldn't call them shenanigans, but you know what I mean. So, first line, Bersaglieri. I hope I pronounced that right. I made an effort. Light infantry, mobile trucks, motorcycles, and bicycles. It, it if suffers ELR reduced to a 336 conscript. Conscripts battle hardened to a 346. That's the way the game goes. So the long and short of it is the uh, first line squads are a special type of units in the Italian armed forces called bersaglieri. Light infantry that uses mobile trucks, motorcycles, bicycles, and if they suffer ELR, they go directly down to a 336. Um, do not forget that surrender, there is a +1 close combat DRM for a capture attempt. Once captured, they cannot attempt escape. Non-elite Italian units are always lax, and they also, if they're non-elite, the Italians also need to add a +1 DRM to a Patsy. So the Patsy is the morale, the task check that they take before attacking an armored fighting vehicle. Now, the other little known attribute for the Italian units is that if they're playing against Yugoslav or Greeks, it increases the morale, the broken morale level of the Greeks and the Yugoslavs by 1. So if you're playing a Greek or a Yugoslav player and you have broken units, your adversary is Italians, you rally at +1 to your broken morale. In other words, if your broken morale is 6, because you're playing the Italians, it's now a 7. Now, how do you get your hands on the Italian units? There's a cheap way, or let's not say cheap. Let's say inexpensive. Cheap is not a good word. Scratch that. Here you go. So there's an affordable way and a not so affordable way, at least from my perspective. Now, most of you out there, you might have money to spare and contribute to the hobby and to MMP's existence. In that case, Halo Allegiance is the way to go. I guess it's the only way to go. Now, if you're like me with a tight budget and cannot spare so much money, unfortunately, that's the way the situation is unrolling. You can get your hands on Starter Kit 2. Now, Starter Kit 2 has recently been re-released, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where the Italian units first come into play at the Starter Kit level. And there's a good little chunk of interesting Italian units in Starter Kit 3 as well. At least I've noticed at least 1 or 2 tanks in Starter Kit 3, Italian tanks. So if you can't afford it, Starter Kit 2. And if you have money to spare and you're really not tight on money, Halo Legions is the way to go because I've heard I don't own Halo Legions yet. Um, the price point is, I guess, one hesitation, but also uh, the lack of a viable storage solution as well. So I'm working on that. I'm working on that. So if you want to get your hands on Italian units and play a couple of interesting scenarios, Starter Kit 2 is really the way to go. And if you really can afford it, go all the way into Halo Legions. There are a lot of interesting games in Halo Legions, a lot of interesting scenarios that are up for grabs. Now, a word of caution with respect to Advanced Squad Leader, Starter Kit 2, or even Halo Legions for that matter. I would say for any ASL module. The most affordable way to get it is off of MMP or your local hobby shop or your online retailer while the game is in print. Uh, as many of you know, once that game is out of print, the only way you'll be able to find it is secondhand, and secondhand either through, well, mostly through eBay. You're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. And I don't encourage anybody to go out there and pay more than what they have to for any good these days. And paying something like $100 for a starter kit or $200 for a starter kit module, that's crazy. Doom battalions, uh, for example, I've seen it on sale on eBay for a little bit over $300. And if I'm not mistaken, it was um, more or less um, like $80, if I remember correctly, off the MMP site. So three times the price. It's ridiculous. But enough of the negative waves. Let's go on to some positive waves. Um, a little question I can throw out to you out there is, do you feel the Italians get a bad rap in Advanced Squad Leader? Uh, Based on my personal informal research and having spoken to um, at least two or a few more than that veterans of the Greek-Italian War up in Albania in, I believe it was 1940 to 41, what they said about fighting the Italians was all was fine and dandy when the Italian army was beaten back to the Albanian border. From that point and beyond, they were tough. They were tough to beat. Uh, of course, you can remodel that using special scenario rules when you're uh, designing your own scenarios. Um, so that doesn't prevent good gameplay. The other little fact that I gathered um, from studying World War II at the university level, I took only a course that lasted 2 semesters, a history course. And the way Dr. Vogel described the Italians was uh, they were, by the time World War II started, they were overstretched and they were fatigued from fighting prior to the Second World War in Africa and a few other theaters of war. So I guess the invasion of Greece was really an ill-advised invasion that didn't need to happen whatsoever. Italy and Greece had a treaty of friendship before the war even started, so it was all a tragic mistake. Now, with that said, I'm going to give you another tip and tactic. In just a moment, I'm going to pause the video and come back to you instantly, so you don't need to pause the video. Okay? I'm going to give you another tip and tactic. Unfortunately, it's not related to the Italians, but it can be applied broadly everywhere. Hold on a moment. So we're back. We have our beloved Vassal module right here. Now, a couple of things I want to talk to you about in particular. I do play mostly in Vassal, unfortunately. I'd love to play live, but there's limitations to playing live. Um, So before I get to the example, I've noticed that in certain cases, when you expand the screen, you cannot always scroll to the space all the way to the right of the screen. So unfortunately, you can end up with a chopped screen. Now, I'm not sure if that's a bug or the intent or limitation, but that's my note on Vassal. And then here's the situation that I encountered a couple of weeks ago, if not last week. So we have a KV2 here. And of course, this is the adversary. Initially, perhaps one of the squads may have been concealed. Perhaps not. So let's do the math, the two hit numbers. And let's say it's his defensive fire phase, okay? So the Russian is defensive firing against this unit here. So let's do the area target type math. Area target type is 7, ATT. I don't believe you get uh, the range modifier for area target type. It says not applicable to non-stop motion fire or target. Let's leave it out, see if it makes a difference. But anyways, we'll try and score on area target type. So the DRMs in that case is +1 for being buttoned up, +2 for the concealed unit, and the +2 does not apply uh, to the unconcealed unit. Okay, let's see what Vassal bot mod will give us in this case. 5. I'd say that's a hit on the unconcealed unit, but it's still area target type. Hmm. All right, so let's not complicate things. Let's unconceal him. He wasn't concealed, right? But it's still a hit. No, it's not. It's a miss. All right, let's say it's a 4. Did simple math right there for a second. 7 minus 3 is 4, not 5. All right. So let's say I rolled a 4, I got a hit. Where's my acquisition markers? So that's a big ack. Boom. So now I'm rolling. A 152 is otherwise a 150. So I would mark that down to a 12 up 2 shot. 12 IFT plus 2. Let's roll for the IFT. 6. 6 plus 2 is an 8 on the 12 chart. That's a 1 MC. So they both need 9 or less. One guy breaks. The other guy pins. Now this fellow is hull down, so he cannot use his bow. He wants to use his CMG. Let's say he wants to fire at 4, up 2, there. Does he lose? The question is, does he lose his ack or not by firing at, well, he's only firing at one of the two units. He has an area acquisition target. So what's the answer to that question? So it turns out I asked the question on Discord, and Stu chimed in and gave me some rulebook references. JRV chimed in, and JRV's answer is pretty interesting. I agree it's not clear if the firing at a subset of the elements attacked and the first attack is a different target. So the target here, because it was area target type, is the entire hex. Now I'm only firing at the same hex, but a subset or partially uh, a, a unit that is partial to the entire target. Is it clear what is a target? It's not really defined. The ordinance attacks all units on both levels using area target type. If the target is a set of units, then the answer is no. But I think the word target has more complex connotations. For instance, if the first attack were an infantry target type and eliminated one of the two units, would the follow-on CMG attack be against the same target? Or if instead of your case, the hex contained an armored fighting vehicle and infantry in the same location, if the initial ordnance attack were against the armored fighting vehicle using the vehicle target type, would the CMG attack against the vehicle's vulnerable PRC, if any, and the infantry cause loss of acquisition? I think not. And so it seems likely that the idea of target is not just a set of units attacked. But given that there is no formally definition of target, there is sufficient room to doubt as to whether acquisition would be lost in your example. I am inclined to say no, but MMP might disagree. Ladies and gentlemen, I emailed Perry Koch, and he agrees that there is no loss of acquisition in this case. So that's another little tip and tactic that I wanted to bring to you. I already spoke 20 minutes, and I would like to take this moment again, as I always do, to thank all the subscribers. The channel is close to uh, 500 subscribers, close to it. And just to think that I only had 10 subscribers when I first started this journey. And a little note about this journey: my son got me into YouTube, posting Lego videos, which are now not public uh, anymore, in part due to um, his wishes. So I'll keep them private. Um, and then I had recorded using uh, PowerPoint some of my gameplay in Classic Squad Leader, which are still available. All the videos that scored more than 50 views, I still have them up and running, and you can check some of my earlier videos that deal with either uh, Cross of Iron, which are a few games that I played with a good, nice gentleman by the name of Peter Pollard and the late Bob Osipov. And then further to that, Alain Chabot got me started in Starter Kit, and from that I just jumped into full ASL, and I've been learning. I've been learning a lot. Um, COVID gave me the opportunity to play at the tournament level online. That's where you really learn um, a lot more from the School of Hard Knocks, playing against formidable opponents like Carl Noriega, uh, Terry Gray, if I remember correctly, Darren Kovacs, and my apologies if I forgot to mention any other people. I've had a lot of formidable opponents the um, in, in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's all great. And I hope that everybody gets the opportunity to play as much as they can. But one thing is important. Don't forget that the most important game of all is the game of life. And take your time to get away from the game from time to time and enjoy time with your loved ones. And with that said, I bid you farewell until next week again. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye. For now.